Yeah, that was. Hi there, this is Kathleen.
Hey, Miss Kathleen, Joe here.
Hello, Joe.
Yeah, how you been?
Hello, Mr. Chambers. He's on mute. I have to record this 5 minutes after it starts.
I gotta abandon you in 30 minutes, so hopefully I can get a lot of it. Are you doing this weekly, Kathleen, and for how long?
It's David's actually. It's just my bridge, but it's
Oh,
David's
okay.
show.
Yeah, I try to get last week's and I had to push it out, and if I miss anything, I'll try and join Thursday.
It's wonderful. And there's also recordings that he's recording.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Yeah, just I'll just be a fly on the wall here.
See my screen?
Yes. Oh, part 2. Okay.
Yeah, we're doing something different today.
David, did you ever get a hold of Hugh?
We can talk after this meeting.
Okay.
Good morning, this is Eddie.
Hey, Eddie. Eddie, who are you with? From a
I'm with
company.
the Cedar Laredo Transit Department.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello again, Delane.
Hello, how are you?
So you'll probably have as many, if not more, questions on part 2 than you did on part 1.
Fabulous. It'll give you something to do today.
Just waiting to let others have a chance to join. It's still a couple of minutes before start time anyway.
Mhm.
Afternoon, Mike.
David, can you hear me?
Yep. Loud and clear.
All right, I'm just chasing the clock today. How is everybody?
Still some people gathering, so to
Yeah,
speak.
thank you. Yeah, I'll be right here.
Mike, do you want to give it another minute or so?
Yes, David, let's just give it like 30 seconds or so. We'll go.
Okay. Mike, would you like to kick us off?
Am I still there? You missed me. Hello, David.
Mike?
Can you hear me? I'm so sorry.
Yep. Certainly can.
Okay, so has anyone heard anything?
No.
Okay, well, we'll start again, even though I was talking to the screen by myself. Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Mike James. I'm a product manager here at AT&T, primarily associated with the product known as Hosted Voice Service. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. We're beginning part 2 of an ongoing series related to how to support your business's requirements that arose out of a new federal law, a couple of them technically. David Chambers is here with ClearSpan, one of AT&T's partners, and we'll dive into those details to some degree. What I want to point out today is the previous recordings are available on the website if you missed them and would like to review them. Either if you caught them the first time and want to go over them. We're going to have time here at the end to answer some questions and have open discussion if we need to. But today's a big day for us because associated with that announcement that went out a couple of weeks ago that many of you got, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here, was the fact that AT&T HVS updated its graphical user interface known as OpEasy, the administrative tool that many of you use. And as of last night, all of our servers that were staggered over the last week are now upgraded to the current and most recent version with all the new features and enhancements of OpEasy, of which is the ability to manage your 911 dispatchable location from the OpEasy tool directly. So David's going to take us through some detail and overview, and then I'll probably come back at the end and help answer questions and wrap up. I'll be here the whole time. We're certainly thankful that you've taken the time. Again, these calls take place on Tuesdays at 1 Eastern and on Thursdays at 2 Eastern. Historical information, release notes and documentation are available on the website. So thank you all for being here. And David, I'll turn it over to you. Hello, David.
Yeah, Mike, I had the same thing happen to me. Spacebar gets me every time. Afternoon or morning to everyone. Again, I'm David Chambers with the ClearSpan team supporting AT&T's hosted voice service. Hopefully all of you got to see one of the part 1 series. If not, like Mike stated, it's posted on the website. In part 2 here, we're going to cover some different use cases. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that everyone isn't surprised when they hear my giant dog start barking at the postman or Amazon showing up. So part 1 covered this use case, basically shared call appearances. Today, the 911 services, which is called Enhanced 911, is based on a 10-digit telephone number associated with a postal address. That postal address is only the building location, not the floor or other location information. But the real challenge comes in when you have the same 10-digit telephone number on different phones that could be in 2 totally separate locations. In fact, be associated with 2 different first responders, what's referred to as public safety answering points, PSAP. So in part 1, we really did present it relative to customers that do not have the Intrado emergency routing service account. The ones that do have the ERS, we'll cover that during the part 2 presentation. And also there's a HTTP enabled location delivery protocol that is coming out for both Polyphones, the VVX, and also for Mitel phones 6800 and 6900. So in part 1, we addressed those phones that do not support the HELD protocol. And you can see we went over the overview of Baum requirements, the definition of what a dispatchable location is, and the association with an emergency response location, otherwise known as an URL, ERL. OpEasy integration with Intrado, which Mike referenced just a while ago. OpEasy providing the capability of creating dispatchable locations and URLs, and then assigning those URLs to devices. And last, next steps, which you can find in the presentation that's posted on the website. So really, to sum up part 1, again, for customers that do not have an Intrado ERS account yet, and for devices that are non-held capable, there's really just 2 steps. One is defining dispatchable locations and creating an URL associated with that dispatchable location. And the steps to do that are listed in the sub-bullets, and then assign those URLs to devices, all through OpEasy. So this is the second part, and this is also, that first link is clearspancloud.com/AT&T Admin training is where you can find part 1, and part 2 will be posted there shortly. So in part 2, we're trying to cover more use cases beyond just the non-held wired phones and shared call appearances. So the 3 use cases we'll cover here is how to address the different types of 911 call originators, because with soft clients being on mobile devices, being on desktops or wired phones, the same telephone number can be on all of those 3 types. So how do you differentiate them? Use case 3, utilizing the held protocol so that the endpoints can detect their network information and report it to what's referred to as a location information service that will assign the phone a unique identifier to use for 911 calls. And then the 4th use case, if you have an Intrado ERS account, how do you migrate those subscribers to OpEasy and get those populated in HVS? So for those that are on the call, do any of you have an Intrado ERS account currently?
Yes, Central Sierra does.
Okay, so we'll be covering that at the last portion of this, and hopefully it will be clear to you, or allow you to ask more questions, Delane. All right, so again, the agenda here is 911 call treatment for non-held endpoints, an overview of the held protocol, the ERS account structure, just one slide on that. It's really just for your awareness. And then syncing OpEasy with the existing Intrado ERS account. And we'll go into questions and feedback following that, as Mike suggested previously. So call treatment for non-held endpoints. There's the mobile device, nomadic devices, which if you have the soft client on your laptop and you can move from one access point to another, you can have it in your corporate office, you can have it at Starbucks, and then wired endpoints that don't support held. So in all cases, a 911 call from those devices, if it's a VoIP, if it's a voice over IP, a SIP call, will be delivered through HVS to the Intrado emergency routing service. They will select the correct PSEP to send the call to, and also to send the dispatchable location. For mobile devices, both Google and Apple have a partnership with a company called Rapid SOS that does advanced location for cellular devices. So with that technology, trying to leverage and take advantage of that technology, we configure Communicator as to prefer the cellular network to take advantage of that integration with Rapid SOS. However, if you do not have cellular connectivity and you do have Wi-Fi connectivity, we will accept a VoIP call from that client and we will send it to the Intrado ERS. It will not be provisioned in the ERS, so it will go through to the emergency call center from Intrado. And the reason we don't configure it in the ERS is we have no idea of the location. Unlike nomadic users and wired users, at least we have some coordinates to work with. Now, nomadic devices. So in this case, it would be Communicator is what's available currently. So Intrado has a small client called Location Manager that can recognize that you have changed IP addresses, that you've moved from one Wi-Fi BSSID to another. A Wi-Fi BSSID is the equivalent of a access point MAC address. And if that network IP address or BSSID is not already mapped into the Intrado ERS, it will prompt the user for their location. The user will put in their postal address. Location manager will send that to the ERS. The ERS will do a validation on that address. And then if a 911 call is made by that from that soft client, not from the location manager, but from the soft client that's associated with that location manager, it will be delivered to the ERS, and it'll already have which PSAP and what dispatchable location to provide to the PSAP. For wired endpoints, this gets a little more challenging because the held service is becoming available, which communicates to a list server. So I'll cover that in more detail here shortly. On B, the emergency gateway, it's either an appliance from an Intrado, or you can have a virtual instance, and it's for non-held capable wired endpoints. And the way the EGW works is basically doing a layer 2 scan, collecting the MAC addresses, and then there's a integration between OpEasy and that EGW that allows the EGW to identify the calling party for 911 calls, and including differentiating shared call appearances. It can also detect movement of that phone, wired phone, from one area of the network to another area of the network. The third solution for wired endpoints is basically you can lock down your network. You can manually manage it, or you can build custom applications. We have instances of a very large university that basically emulated what the EGW does with the layer 2 scan, and then pulls information from OpEasy to be able to populate the ERS through a SOAP API. So again, whether it's held or it's EGW or it's do it yourself, all those calls will traverse HVS to get to the ERS. Okay, the held protocol. So the held protocol is intended to be two parts of it. One is leveraging LLDP, which is a link layer discovery protocol. And once it has that information, it will then do a call to a location information service to get that token to use for during 911 calls to identify the dispatchable location. So this has to do with your IT department mapping the network, whether it's at a subnet level, or it could be a chassis level, like chassis 1, or in chassis 2's example, it's down to a port level. So again, like I explained during part 1 of this, is that the dispatchable location is really for you and your organization to define. And it should be defined based on trying to get the first responders to the caller as quickly as possible. So the way held works, this is basically just covering what I've just mentioned about subnet level chassis or chassis port level. And then those would be defined in the ERS as dispatchable locations with the URL's address. And the held protocol device would be provisioned as a 10-digit number in the ERS. So here's the flow of the exchange. So the first thing that the device does when it powers up or restarts, it does an LLDP query. And in that query, which is over here on the right side, you'll see that it gets its chassis ID, its port ID, and other information that I'll cover in a moment, sent back from the switch. Then it sends a held request to the list service, and the list service has that database that says, oh, that chassis ID or that port ID or that subnet is dispatchable location X. The list service then sends back to the device that unique identifier to use during 911 calls. So both Intrado and Microsoft have list services. The first example I'm going to show you is the interaction of a Poly or Mitel phone that supports held with the Intrado list service. And then the second example will be an exchange that you would see from an MS Teams client. So in this example, you can see at the very top of what's been outlined here is the MAC address. Here's your subnet of 192.168.6.101, a unique identifier for the chassis, the unique identifier for the port, and the callback number 514-745-1111. So with that being sent to the list server, the list would look for whether it was subnet based or chassis based or port based and get the dispatchable location. In this case, the Intrado list service will return to the device a location URI. And think of this as an index key to the dispatchable database that the Intrado ERS has. So the device receives this, holds onto it, and retains that unless the device detects that it's moved. If it detects that, it will make a request to the list server to get an updated key. When a 911 call is made, that key is included into the SIP invite sent through HVS to Intrado, and Intrado has uses that index to get the dispatchable location, which tells the ERS which PSAP to send the call to and what dispatchable location to send with the call. Now switching over to the Microsoft, same request, same type of information, subnet, all the way down to port and callback number. However, Microsoft responds with what's known as PIDFlow. You can see at the top, these are geo coordinates, longitude and latitude. Then it goes down to country code, 0 being the US, the state, the city, the street address, and then any additional information like floor or office number or cube. And again, the device hangs onto that information. And when a 911 call is made, that information is sent with the invite. It goes to the Intrado ERS. The geo coordinates select the correct PSAP, and then the call is sent to that PSAP, and the PIDFlow information is also sent there for dispatchable location information. And I'll pause just for a second. Any questions relative to the held protocol? Take that as a no. Just a quick sampling of what the sort of a high level view of what Intrado's emergency response service account structure looks like. So the level 1 account belongs to AT&T, and that's what HVS connects to. But if you were a customer that had an emergent gateway, you would have a level 2 account, you would have an EGW deployment account. If you had MS Teams, you would have your own MS Teams deployment account. If you had statically defined non-held SIP phones or location manager or held devices, it would drop down into a sub account, 1 per enterprise. The point of even showing the slide is that what we've done with OpEasy sort of negates all the rule sets and selecting which account and things of that nature. So nothing for you to do on that slide. And delaying this is where we're going to cover your integration with the current Intrado ERS. So with this new release of OpEasy, well, I should say prior to this release of OpEasy, anyone with an Intrado ERS was going through the ERS portal and defining their dispatchable locations, defining URLs, labels for those dispatchable locations, and then associating subscribers with those URLs. With this new release of OpEasy, instead of the ERS having both subscriber information and URL information, very much like we do with our integration with the EGW, the ERS will be the master reference for the URL data, including dispatchable location, and HVS/ClearSpan/OpEasy will become the master reference for the ERS subscribers. So it's important to note that this export and import that I'm about to show you has to be executed before you can use the OpEasy ERS integration without and not lose the database work that you've already done for subscribers through the ERS portal. Right. So one thing to note for the integration to take place, we are going to need to know the account ID. And this is a partial screenshot of what your ERS administrator sees when they first sign on to the account. We'll if you deliver that to ClearSpan operations, we will modify your ERS, your OpEasy account to be associated with that account ID. It takes a super user or a system admin to provision that. And so the ClearSpan team and the ClearSpan team currently does not have access to your accounts. And so if you right now just open a ticket, put the account ID in the ticket, and we'll get you set up with OpEasy. So inside of the Intrado ERS, we're in that sub account, and they have subscribers defined. They could have subnets defined, wireless access points and switches, again, back to the held protocol. And they also have URLs, which contain dispatchable location. For example, here's one, the URL information that the dispatchable location is here. And the URL name in this case is Black Dog. Where to route the call, again, like we spoke previously in part one, you can send it to the PSAP, you can send it to your security team if they are a NINA certified PSAP, or that you can conference in the security team with the call to the PSAP. Also, there's an automatic check in the ERS that says this address here is valid. And then it, of course, has an account name and so on and so forth. With that, they have the ability to export. So I've gone under the provisioning section. There's an export tab here, and I'm exporting subscribers. It's going to come up with all of this selected, and it's you can shrink that down. It's highly recommended that you shrink it down to just these 5 items. And then from that, execute the export. And it will create a spreadsheet. And when it's finished processing that export, you'll see an indicator in File Manager. And that will give you the ability to download the file through your browser. Then you swivel chair over to Op Easy, and you want to go into under provisioning to export. So you're under the provisioning tab here. You've gone to export, and you want to select advanced export. From that, only select users for the enterprise that you have selected. It's a close up, so instead of an eye chart. Only select users. That's the only thing that you need to export for this synchronization with the ERS. And then, of course, when you, after starting it in the lower part of that same screen, it'll show that it's executing and that the export has completed successfully, which will allow you to retrieve the results. So here's the two spreadsheets. The export from ERS is at top. There's 3 screenshots of Op Easy Advanced Export for the user tab. It was so wide that I took pieces of it so you could actually read it during the presentation. So in the ERS export, they have the line port information under the subscriber ID. They also have a URL name of Black Dog. So you would find the entry that matches. So same telephone number .primary.test02, and then it'll have an FQDN with it also. Then you would take the Black Dog and populate the empty device URL record name, and then you would set the command to modify device. And then at that point, you're ready to import the spreadsheet back into Op Easy. And with that, the import, again, under provisioning, you would do an import. It would be an import type of advance, which enterprise it's for, and then specify the file name and start the import. At that point, what happens is Op Easy now knows which subscribers have URLs assigned, and it will execute a synchronization with the ERS by requesting all the URL information that it has, and then pushing all the subscriber information that Op Easy /HVS has just acquired. And then at that point, you're in sync. And from there, you can create your dispatchable locations, assign URLs, and assign URLs to subscribers all through Op Easy. Again, with the benefit that we enable that for enterprise administrators, group administrators, department administrators. However, department administrators are limited to just assigning URLs to users. They cannot create or modify URLs. So at that point, that really completes the coverage of those 3 additional use cases. Any questions, comments? Mike, anything from your side?
Yeah, thank you, David. Let me try to just make some broad stroke comments here. I think we shared a lot of information today that is exactly that, just information. It's call flows, it's different environments that we support. I think the goal as we move into part 2 here was to make sure that you as administrators understand that, if somebody has a black phone on their desk or has a client software on a laptop or has some mobile device with a client, that we have the ability to care for and correctly or successfully terminate any 911 call that those users originated, right? That's the high level point. And we wanted you to be aware that there's a new protocol that is being, introduced into the industry. Actually, it isn't new, by the way, but new to some of the devices that are popular and commonly used with HVS, such as the Polycom VVXs, and of course, there are many Mitel 6800 series phones out there that will help automate this process in the days ahead. I guess I want to step back and just make sure that as administrators joining this call today, this was all just information that we wanted to evolve the discussion to better help you have an assurance that all these use cases, as we use that term, our variables are being addressed. Back to where we are is simpler, right? The new code is now there and in effect. If you haven't already been migrated to Intrado's emergency routing service, which is AT&T's supplier under the covers, who is making us all compliant with the Baum Act, then you can use OpEasy now as a single interface to manage and maintain that information. That's the simple point. And that the task that's in front of most of us is still what I call blocking and tackling, right? We need to go in and figure out these response locations. How do we want to group our buildings in our organization so that, you know, they have perhaps a common dispatchable location for public safety, right? And then how to take that response location once you've built it and assign it to many devices and users. That's really, as I'm trying to put a summary on this for you, the task that's at hand, right? So if I'm in a major university or if I'm in a library, those rules may be different, right? In some cases, I may be, you know, at a very small location, and some of this doesn't make any sense because if a public first responder showed up at the front door, he could walk through the door and see all 8 people in that building, right? So street address, street number is probably going to work. That's not what the law says they need, but just beware, we would recognize that that's a single response location that I would assign to those users. By the same token, I could have, you know, a large university building that has, you know, 4 floors and multiple rooms, and I would want to build a dispatchable location, response location, technically, to each room. So that I would know if some PC or wireless device was associated with that access point of that room, carried that information back so that first responders would know where to go. Anyway, I don't mean to wander too far here. The point I'm trying to get is that we need you to think about how to organize response locations beyond street address, right? We've been doing E911 for decades now, where you have a street number and a street name, right? 123 Main Street, and that's where the first responder came. Now they want in the new law to include additional information about 123 Main Street, and to be sure that we have, you know, associated that with a particular device. That's all, our user. So today, as we go into the second phase, was about dealing with these other permutations, I'll use that word, right? Held protocol. Don't think we have hardly anybody, if anybody, using that today, right? So be aware that as it comes, it will be able to be available. We certainly have lots of customers, or some customers, that have what we're calling nomadic, right? The laptop device that has a client. I think David made it very clear that we'll work with Intrado and give you instructions on how to make sure that other piece of code called Location Manager is actually also on that laptop, so that as that user takes his laptop, and most of the laptops I'm familiar with today are not wired any longer, right? They're wireless connections to access points, and how those dispatchable locations are addressed. And then there's a handful of you that may actually have an emergency gateway server or some custom element. You know, we should just deal with all those one-off. But at the end of the day, if you have an EGW, that's a special appliance, a special server, right? It's been there forever. That would have already had this, what I call, wire diagram built in it for detecting movement when a black phone moves from one room or one building to another. So anyway, I kind of broad stroke the whole discussion that David just gave us. But I don't want you to get bogged down too much in, level 1 accounts, level 2 accounts. What are you? Did I use ERS? That's not the point here. The point that AT&T is trying to drive home here is that we've cared for all of this. It is complex. And as administrators, what you need to take away from this and do on behalf of your entity and organization is to find these locations and assign them to your users. And what AT&T's job as a part of the law was to make sure that we gave you a tool that enabled you to be compliant with the law. That's really the summary here. So I'm going to pause and let's open up the floor for some questions. If we have any in the last 20 minutes. If not, we can end early and give you back some time. And again, we'll be back here Thursday at 2:00 to continue this. Who wants to go first?
Delane, did you have any questions?
This is Delane.
Yeah.
Yes.
knew
I
you would.
sent Mike a chat with all my concerns. We are 1 week out from our soft phone lines, that secondary line going away, and I need these instructions on how to download this. If I can have them sent to me in an email for a hard copy, I've got to get those addresses pulled before next week. So I'm a little concerned.
And Delane, do you have the link to the website?
Well, probably. Yes. I'll go find them. I was hoping you could just email them out, but
No,
because I'm going to need to pull them and then figure out how we kind of talked about this a little bit. I've got to merge their current other number home location with their in office because we're getting rid of that second line and they're going to that more follow me mode as of next Tuesday.
Okay. Delane, I'm showing the link right now.
Okay.
If you want to jot that down, or I can see if I can get to the chat and to everyone. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you.
And Delane, I don't have a problem discussing your particular situation right here. So maybe let's dive into a little deeper, right? So as I recall, you had 2 different numbers associated with each user. Is that correct? Can you just take me back a step and tell me how you have it today and how it's changing? And we'll see if we can't all understand that and learn from it.
Okay. So we have 2 main office locations. Both have an HVS system in the location. We also, when pandemic hit, because of all the restrictions of the state, rolled out an interim additional AT&T soft phone lines and voicemail pass with voicemail accounts under one of those agencies. So I have 18 users that have both a desk line number. Half of them are in one office, the other half are in the other office, but they all have soft phone lines and voicemails as well that they use over their computer when they're at home. As of next Tuesday, we are rolling to the, whatever you call it, I call it the follow me. I don't know what the technical term is, but where their phone on their desk is going to go to their laptop when they leave. So it's going to be following them. We built in Trado all the home addresses for those laptops and where they belong under that number. And we have our office mapped down to the desk within the office they sit at. All of that's in the Intrado system because we mapped everything down to the very nth degree when we did this our conversions over the last 2 years. So now I have to get those addresses tied to those other numbers, pulled in and tied to the desk line when they're off site on their mobile device or on their laptop. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So that's helpful, at least a refresher for me to remember. And if I understand correctly, what you're going to do is eliminate the home address telephone number.
Right.
And the folks with the main office number, I assume that these laptops are going to become nothing more than a shared call appearance off of that line.
Yes.
And that you are downloading and using the location manager client as well.
Well, I believe that's what I'm doing.
Okay, well, I mean, that's what I think we should do. Let me be clear, right? Okay. So,
Yeah.
and then the location manager will be, I think, the key to the kingdom here, right? You're going to have associated an URL with that hard phone, right? And it has some specific identifiers in it called line port identifiers that will know it came from it. And then your shared call appearance device, i.e. the soft phone, will have a different capability, right? That location manager code is where I'm trying to spit out, will be where that user maintains his location for the soft phone identifier if he would dial 911 from it, right? So I think the real so we're happy. And by the way, we probably should have a separate call, but just to kind of let everybody know, this is a really good use case, right? Where really probable where you have a hard phone and a laptop, right? And what's going to happen is location manager is going to be that piece of code that picks up the wireless access point that the laptop is on and helps you manage or helps the user manage his location. That's the single key to the puzzle here. So defining that location, and David, feel free to jump in, but just FYI, I think that's the trick, right?
Yeah, everything you said is correct. And Lane, I just want to make sure that you understand this part, that when you convert those users to be a shared call appearance of their desk phones, let's back up just for a second. Do you interface with the Entrado portal?
Yes.
Yes, where I go in and change it,
Right.
their,
Okay.
call
So
forward and all that
ERS
stuff.
users. Yep.
What Entrado does is at an enterprise level, they'll send out a copy of the location manager. And then the enterprise administrator is responsible for getting that to each one of the users that are using a desktop communicator. Once the user installs that, it will automatically come up and ask, because it doesn't know the address, it will ask the end user for the postal address. And so they'll provision their own postal address in the ERS. And OpEasy, when you build them as a shared call appearance, and they know that it's going to be a communicator client, will put the right subscriber entry in the ERS. So that export import, if that's only for your remote users currently, you don't even have to do that.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following. I'm only
Yeah,
half
so I just wanted
I'm
to
only
jump
half IT and technology savvy. So and when we did all this originally, I just filled in a spreadsheet and they loaded everything for us. So I know, like I said, they have communicator on their desktop now because that's what they're using for their soft phones.
Right. And you do not have location manager yet?
No, there's separate telephone numbers and static locations inside of ERS, David.
Yeah, but
They
Mike, even as a prime line, since it's communicator on the desktop,
They should have got
they
location
should
manager.
install location manager.
Yeah. Anyway, I think thank you for the background. Yeah, Delaney, I think we want to try to pull you together offline now, okay, and go through this.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think I want to comfort you in that this really won't be that difficult. The difficult part is probably just getting the 18 users to download the client or getting them installed if it's not currently installed.
They have the communicator.
No, we're talking about location manager, a second client from.
Okay. And that's going to be a hurdle because that's going to have to go through state DCSS. They're going to have to approve it. They're going to have to put it on there and they're going to have to push it out to us.
Gotcha. That is good news. The process is probably the bigger problem.
And I've got a week, so I'm getting a little worried.
Okay, happy to work with you. We'll make it a point to do that tomorrow.
Okay.
And Delane, I put the link in the chat box
Okay.
for everyone to access. And give me, I'd say the second presentation, since it's hot off the presses, will be posted to that same website, hopefully before the end of today, but certainly by tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, so
Delaney has the great. You have the great situation of the worst word in IT, which is migration. Right?
Yeah.
We have to migrate some old to the new, which will happily help you through that. How about others out here with that may be new today or just had this introduced? I'm looking at the names and I can't recall from the previous meetings who's joined and who hasn't. Any comments?
This is-
You're welcome.
This is David Hillier from the Sacramento Public Library. I was going to ask the same question if there was a link to go and read the presentation or read the, look at the instructions from that point of view. I think it'd be easier than trying to remember this from a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I've been in and out of some of these calls. I try to make them, but it's kind of difficult with everything else going on. So what's the hard date that this has to be completed?
So, Mike, again, the law, Baum Act, says that everyone has to be compliant by January 6th of 2022. Now, I just tell everybody the end of this year, right? So you've got roughly 6 weeks, 7 weeks to complete this task if you haven't begun and done it already.
My other question would be, like I said, I've been in and out of some of these calls.
Of course.
So I guess I'll just have to go back and read the instructions and go from there. And then if I have any more questions, I guess I can ask you guys.
So David, you mentioned that you're associated with libraries. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Sacramento Public Library.
So how many, just looking at the facility, is it large enough to be more than one dispatchable location?
Yeah, so we have 28 branches.
Okay.
Every location is single story, so that's pretty easy. But our main central library is 6 different floors.
Right.
We have about 430 users. So I don't think it'd be that complicated. I just need to, I guess, carve out a day and actually work on it.
So look, I want to, Mike, if you don't mind, go through this exercise real fast. So David, how many branches again? 6?
28.
Oh,
28 branches. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
28 branches. They're all, relatively all the phones are located in the staff workrooms. But we do have our one central library which is our admin building. It's 6 floors and we have HR and finance and, facilities, IT, and all the other support departments are on different floors. So that's going to be the big one to set up.
Yeah. So you're going to have it at a minimum 34 Earls, right?
Yeah.
34 different dispatchable locations. And that's if the main building, you only did 1 Earl, 1 dispatchable location per floor.
Yeah. Like how detailed does it have to be? Do I have to say, lower level, west side of building?
You want to go, David, or go ahead?
Yeah. So let me do this just for a second. Stop.
And while
Yeah.
David does that, I'll give you the high level answer. Whatsoever meaningful, right? Do I think I have to get down to all 430 users having unique locations? You do not. Could I say everybody, all the phones that are on floor 5, say Central Library headquarters, 5th floor? That would probably be adequate to comply with the law. Could I take the 5th floor and say north, south, east, west wing? You could. if they had a room number on the 6th floor that was meaningful for, say, accounting or HR, you could. I think that's why we got to look at each environment a little closely, David. But to answer your question, the more information you can help a first responder, the better. But I think it becomes a point in my mind where it can become too granular to maintain, right? That's sort of the balance.
Yeah, and if we have some people that tend to move to different departments, and then we'll have to remember to change that on the phone. Each one of these departments already have a panic button as well, that when you hit it, it alerts the Sacramento Police Department and our security detail in the building. So I might want to see how they have that one set up.
David, can you see my screen again?
Yes,
And also, did you get the link out of the chat box?
I did.
Okay. All right. So this is what's new in Op Easy, and I'll blow through this in a matter of minutes. So
Okay.
we've added the 911 services. Underneath that, Mom PC, work with me now. We've added emergency routing service. Under that, we've added URL management, and this is where you can define your dispatchable location, get an URL label defined, and then once the URL and dispatchable location is loaded, then you can go about assigning those URLs to devices. So here's a quick sequence: adding an URL. If you're doing it via the GUI, and I'll cover the spreadsheet version right after this, it will present here this format. The URL name is meant to be a label that will be sent to the ERS, and it should be somewhat intuitive to the administrator, like main building, 4th floor, or section of floor.
Okay.
This is your postal address here. And then the location is the advanced location information. So like floor 1, lobby 101. The location information here is going to be provided with the 911 call to the PSAP.
Okay.
This description is just another level of description that should be intuitive to the admin, but it will not go with the 911. So this could be 2nd floor, room 201, and down here it could be the IT office or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that part, all that makes sense. I'm just worried about, so would I have to create all of these first, and then I could export it? That's where I think I got kind of hung up at.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
so-
the answer is yes. You want to build these locations first. Let's to keep David's model. Say there were just 34. Maybe you end up with 40, whatever the number, right?
Okay.
Then you're going to take those 40 and assign them to your 430 users. That's all.
All right.
Yeah.
And we'll
So
do that with the export, right? You can do that.
So here is filled out, David.
Mhm.
In this case, I want my security team conference, and this is the DID to reach my security team. Also, here's the email addresses that I want people notified when a 911 call is made, including an email to text address. And once they contact the security desk security team on that DID, I want the call to be unmuted to my security team. So once that's created, this is going to go in how you do that in bulk with a spreadsheet. It's the same thing that we just accomplished with the GUI, except with this advanced. This is the export. Departments, or if you don't select departments, it'll be at group level. And then this would be the screen where you import that spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet looks like this. This is just a total composite of the tab, but I'll break it down in pieces. The first part is the command. You can add, modify, or delete URLs.
Mhm.
So this is not assigning users. This is creating, modifying, or deleting URLs and dispatchable locations. The URL identification name, this again could be main building, second floor, or more specific. So this does go out with the 911 call. This URL ID is a machine-to-machine generated. So just leave it blank if you're adding or modifying.
David, I'm going to interject here as we get to the top of the hour. I guess the point I want to make is you have the ability, David, I'll speak to you directly, to create your 40 or 34 URLs on a spreadsheet and import them, or you have the ability to go right into OpEasy and just build them one at a time. You know, we have customers with, you know, tens of thousands of users and thousands of URLs, right? They probably don't prefer to import their URLs with a spreadsheet. I would probably contend that making 40 of them is up to you, right? Do I just want to build one spreadsheet and do it and import it once, or do I want to just build 34 ads on the screen, right? That's something to think about.
I think it just goes with your preference, what you're more comfortable doing.
Absolutely.
Right.
I am not disagreeing with that. I am agreeing with that. And I think
Okay.
David's just showing you the alternate way.
So once those are all created, can I go into each individual user and just select it through the GUI, or do I have to?
So what happens is when you go, let me back up one. So you go to the phone devices for that user, select the phone to edit it, and now you'll have an ERL list here. But remember that ERS account number, you need to provide that to the ClearSpan ops team so they can provision your OpEasy account to associate it with the ERS account.
That's if they have one already, David. That's right.
Right.
Okay.
And then when you've built your 34 or more dispatchable locations with URLs, they will show up in a drop-down box. And so each one of those devices, you just select which one and say, okay, and you're done.
All right. Okay.
So anyway, it's been an overview, everybody. We're a few minutes past, and I'm want to be respectful and conscious of the time. We'll be back here on Thursday at 2 Eastern to continue this. Delaney, we'll get back with you to sort of talk about your special situation that you're migrating through with those users. And I'm available via email at any time. Otherwise, we'll see you back here if you have time on Tuesday at 2 Eastern. And once again, as David stated, the information in this recording will be posted later tonight on the website. So certainly by tomorrow morning, you could go back and revisit it if you chose to. So thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. Say again.
This is Loretta with AT&T.
Hi, Loretta.
Is Thursday's class a continue? Is it part 2 again?
Yes.
Or is it part 3?
No, it'll be a repeat of this. So last
Okay.
week and the week before, we did part 1 for maybe 4 days. Now we're going to do part 2 for about 4 days, and then we'll move to part 3. So this will be evolving, but just to answer your question, it'll be a repeat of the information we went over today. We'll try to do a little better job, a different job, or expand upon what we exposed today based on the questions we got back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to conclude the call, everybody, and thank you all for joining, and hope to talk to you and see you soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.